join us for another episode where real men have real conversations about leadership, relationships, morality, and dominion. Welcome to Mancode.
Hello, everybody. How y'all doing? I'd like to welcome you, viewing audience, those who joined in, back to Mancode, the conversation that's for everybody, especially men. We're excited because really this is our season 4. First time out, season 4. We've been rocking with it, y'all. I want to give y'all a round of applause because this has been a good thing. We've had a lot of great conversation, and hopefully we've affected a lot of change out there to you viewers. But before we get in too deep, for those of you who rock with us, you already know. And for those of you who are new, we want to say like, subscribe, and share. We want to keep the Mancode conversation going. We've had some exciting conversations rolling out, and we know this season is going to be no different. But before I get too in deep, first time in, we're just going to let everybody go around and introduce themselves around the horn. As always, my name is Jonathan Russell. Happy to be with everybody. Y'all go ahead.
What's happening? BMA, Big Mac Attack, Malcolm Crawford back at you. Season 4. It's going to be fire.
That's what's up.
Let's see what we doing. Okay. Danielle Lewis, welcome back to season 4.
What's up, everybody? Austin McMurray, season 4. Excited to be back. I don't have as dope of an intro as Pastor Malcolm, so I'm going to leave it there.
Welcome to number 4. My name's Gary Fant.
All right, thank y'all. No, I don't think anybody can top that one. We all look a little lame by comparison, but that's all right. We're gonna let them be top dog tonight. But with this time being around Father's Day, we just kind of want to gear up and just kind of acknowledge the men, just acknowledge fathers, men, role models in our lives. But tonight we want to really kind of think of the conversation in a little bit different way, because it really came to us as far as how do you reflect on losing your dad versus never having one, or having your dad lost? How does that weigh in? So we kind of want to just kind of go there tonight and just pick our brains. Viewing audience, definitely chime in on the comments. We want to hear from you. Your thought process is very important, because without you, we wouldn't have much to talk about. But let's go here. Is there a connection really between having been raised by your dad and losing him to death versus having a dad who was never there? Does that tie in at all?
Well, for me, yeah, I would say there's a connection, and the connection is simply there's been a loss. However, the loss came through death or not having your dad there, but there's a loss. And there's a lot of variables that take place, in those type of relationships. First of all, you got to consider, if your dad was there, was he a good dad? Was he a bad dad? Was he absent dad? Was he present but absent? All those variables come into play. But at the end of the day, I still think having a dad there, regardless of how he was, is very important to a young man. I mean, I'm a big believer of redemption, restoration, and things can get better. Maybe the relationship started off bad and so forth, but there's always hope for things to improve and things to change. So yeah, the connection is, for me, is that, he just wasn't there. Now, on the other hand, if he was there, the big difference is you had a chance to spend time with him. You had a chance to get to know him, things like that. If you never knew your dad, you always have those questions. What if? These type of things, unanswered questions. So yeah, I think there's definitely a connection. And for me, the connection was simply, hey, there's a loss, there's a void, and that may not, well, that's difficult to fill.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think there are connections there for sure, but I think the impact of that loss might be different for different people. For example, right? You take me, right? My father passed away last year. Had a great relationship with my father, talked all the time, almost every day, about, any and everything. And we had all these plans for our future moving forward, right? How he would be a grandfather to my grandkids, and when I would buy my first home and all this other stuff, right? And so for me, losing him impacts me in a way where, like, I'm sad and disappointed that we won't get to experience all these things that we talked about. Whereas, like, if someone were to lose a father who wasn't present, they knew, I shouldn't say they knew, but there's a chance that that person knew that they shouldn't expect too much from their father. So there were the expectations that they had of their father weren't the same expectations that I had of my father. So that's why I say I think the impact is different, but the connection being there as far as like filling that loss and that void that kind of that happens in your life is definitely a similar connection.
That's good.
I would like to jump in on this one because I see it in two different lenses. One, I see it the time of death it may have happened. You know, if it happened early in life where you didn't develop a relationship with them, it's kind of like you never knew the person, you know, so they never had any impact. However, depending on the cycle of life, what you're going through, the stages of life, the steps of life where you develop a relationship, you know, and for me, whether the dad is a good, you know, and who's to delegate who's good and who's not good, you know, but to go on further, the relationship. If you have a positive relationship, I feel it's going to mean more to losing that individual versus not having a strong relationship. However, the feelings and that innate being, I feel, that spiritual piece, you know, it's your father. So you're going to have still that longing for him. So it's kind of difficult to me because I lost my dad when I was 12, and I was right in that area of maturity, if you will, where you needed a male to kind of like help guide you through that uncharted territory, not knowing to do this or say this or how to conduct yourself as a young teenager, you know. So I was in absence of that. So it still stings that even at my late age, you know, just sitting here talking about it with, you know, brothers that I know and been communing with for some time now. It still has that, you know, regret. You know, I hold that, not that I did anything, but I wish he was still around, you know, that type of thing to foster that presence. Hopefully that was helpful.
Very. Your thought, Danielle?
Do you restate the question?
Oh yeah, no doubt. I was basically asking, is there a connection between having been raised by your dad and losing him to death versus having a dad who was never there?
Okay. I guess I've had the experience of both in this with the same father. I think in previous episodes we talked about how when I was younger, my father would take me. My daddy was a contractor, and so he would take me on site work with him. But as I got older and in my teens, that relationship dwindled. And then when I came back around when I was 21, 22 years old, I pursued the relationship with my father. Like I would call and he would like, let me get your mama, you know, because every time he called, it was like, you know, can I speak to moms? And so, but this particular time I was like, no, I called to talk to you. And I just want to let you know that, you know, when I call, I just don't want to just talk to her, but I want to talk to you. I initiated the reconnection. And I'm glad that I did because if I hadn't, then I would have never had the relationship that I needed during my young adult life. And I was able to ask the questions of my adolescence that I didn't have the answers to. So ended up having a great relationship with my father on the tail end. Even in that when you hit your 40s, usually you start dealing with ailing parents. And so I started spending that time, you know, working. My father ended up, you know, getting really ill, and I had to transport him from Detroit back to where I was staying initially in Kalamazoo, and caring for him and caring for my mother, and just being able to have that time. My kids were able to spend time with the grandfather before he ended up passing away. And so I can say there was a longing when the connection was not there. And then there is there is a cherishing memory that I have now that he is gone. And so I think those are, for me, the differences of the two. One is devoid of having any kind of connection, and the other one is I'm cherishing the moments that I actually was able to have with him.
Wow. Y'all gave some very striking comments on that. One thing that you said, Pastor Malcolm, kicking it off, you said the loss. Naturally, that is a connection because at any point you don't have them. But I think in terms of having a good father, if you would term it that way, versus having one that you didn't have, I think really it's imparting, is getting the wisdom, is having the ability to share. And if you had a relationship, even being able to see a part of yourself as an older self, I think that's what you miss. So it's just really that connection to life. Either way, there's a longing, there's a desire to belong, there's a desire to be in that relationship. So I think both have a way in with that. But staying in line with this, what seems to be the biggest issue from men not having a father in their life? And that can be looked at from a lot of different ways. I mean, from absentee father to losing your father. What do y'all think on that?
I'll try to go at this one first. I just think the guidance, that parental guidance, that's so valuable, so valuable. That without that guidance, you know, you tend to flounder. You know, you're trying everything. There's no parameters to say what you can do and shouldn't do. But when you have that male figure in your life, you know, he kind of like helps you orchestrate that challenging time and that growth period when you really need that person to help carry you over the bridge, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Like I say, you know, when you make I did make the comment, like, you know, whether father be good or bad, and to some kids, you know, they are, you know, you in a lot of cases you can tell if you think your dad was a good father, but who are we to judge our parents? But at the end of the day, you know, if he provided, if he didn't provide, you know, you could measure that thing. But long story short, I think regardless, man, it's so important to have that male figure there, that man there, because I never had my dad there that I really knew until I was about 9 or 10. Then my mother remarried. I lost my father when I was 3, and actually have no real memories of him at all. Only what people tell me, and so forth and so forth. That's why I'm so big on probably, you know, connecting and trying to keep family together. But like Elder Fan said, man, you have to hear that voice, just being there, whether the dad comes home, and this wasn't my case, inebriated or whatever. At least he's in the house, and you know that you can't get as we would say, too out of pocket, because you know telling what might happen. You see, so just having that man there, that presence, and even the advice that he may give you, whatever state that he may be in, it's just nice to have that there. You know, because all kids want to say, you know how when we were young, we say, I'm gonna get my daddy. I'm gonna go get my daddy. But if you ain't got no daddy to go get, that's a different story. My daddy can whoop your daddy. You know how it is. You know how we did back in the day. You know, and dads are big, man. So that's why I try to be the best. You know, really the best father. I take fatherhood serious, and I think that men really should. And there is a significant impact that we have, whether you know it or not. I mean, you know, just that presence being there is key. You see, and just that voice, because a man's voice, it's a different sound. It has different dynamics, and it moves things differently than that woman's voice.
Amen.
Yeah, I think I mean the result of it is several factors. You know, I mean, thankfully that, you know, that's not my experience, but I think it affects people in a lot of ways. Like you guys said, like guidance, accountability, just having that male voice in the house. There's actually a pretty funny video that I saw. It was a family of dogs, Dobermans, and the baby Doberman was barking, and the mom dog barked to get the puppy to stop barking, and the puppy just kept barking, and then the father dog came, just one loud bark, and that puppy shut down quick. And that was like such an awesome example of like what the father's presence is, right? Like, you know, you don't always have to put your hands on me, you don't always have to do anything, but I'm gonna correct you strong right quick, right? And so a lot of people unfortunately did not have that or don't have that in their lives, so it causes them to lean to other areas to find, you know, male leadership, right? You got gangs, you got so many other things that people turn to that are unfortunately unfortunately impact them negatively. So
Yeah, and I would just echo that and just say that it's for young men, it's important that they have that that man there, no matter whether it is father. And we're talking about fathers right now, but definitely a male presence in their life that that they can butt up against. Sometimes there was like a time in my life where the Bible says that their back cried out for lashes. You know, there's a time I think we all can get to. It's like, you know what, I'm out of control, or I need to get myself, you know, under control. You just realize that you've gone too far even for your own self. But and sometimes I think, you know, because fathers are in your life, they allow you to you butt up against them, and they, you know, that's a deal breaker. My father was probably twice my size in every way: hands, forehead, forearms, everything. You know what I'm saying? And I remember my dad was in martial arts, and he would always do this thing with his fist where he would, you know, do this punch, and I would look at that fist every time he would do it, and I was like, man, that would just destroy my head. In my head, I would say it to myself, like, that would just destroy me if I was ever caught with that, you know, and that thought alone was enough to not ever have me test him, you know. But every young man gets to a point in their life where they stick their chest out and they think they, you know, when 17, 18, you know, 16, 17, 18, around that space, you know, they feel like, you know, they man enough, and that bark come. You know, I remember I jumped bad on my mom's, and my dad was like, boy, don't have me say this to you again. Don't talk to your mama like that. First and last time. He had to put his hands on me. It was just the sound of his voice. It was just the intent and the intention of what he was saying to me. It was the thought I had of that fist. It was all those dynamics all playing into his presence being there. He wasn't the disciplinarian in the home. My mother was. I got 99% of my whoopings from my mother, but my father's presence in the house actually still spoke volumes towards that. And I think when young men don't have that, as Austin was saying a second ago, they go look for it other places. That's why they don't mind getting beat up by 20 dudes to get jumped into an organization that requires them to total loyalty, you know, blood in, blood out. You know what I'm saying? People who are loyal to those codes, and you find family, you find integrity, position, identity, you know, in those places. That's what they're looking for from that father, i.e. a daughter. You know, your daughters, when they say she got daddy issues, most times is because the daughter hasn't had the love of a father. So, you know, most young ladies tend to go and look for older men because of the fact that daddy issue. You know, not being fathered, no sense of identity. So, you know, being dogged or being called out of their name or being treated, you know, abused, all those things come out of the fact of fathers not loving their daughters and not treating their daughters so the daughters know how a man should treat them. So I think the effects of a father not being in a daughter's or a son's life, I think, has repercussions.
No, it's not totally detrimental, but it alters. And the reason being is that men establish identity in their children. You know, as a young boy, you establish your identity from your father. That's your first role model. Daughters see their father but the father's the first boyfriend, ideally, you know, as far as what you would look for in a man. So that identity of seeing what that man is, that goes a long way, because that establishes your discipline. Like you alluded to, Danielle, you learn that in life, there's a line you can't cross. You learn that there are consequences. You learn that from men. And I think that's missing in today's society. And you even look at the identity crisis you have. People not knowing who they are. People claim to be, I'm a cat. You know, there was a young lady who decapitated her. She put her eyes out because she said, I think I'm blind. I identify as blind. So again, this all comes from a lack of knowing who you are. And that comes from a strong male in your life. So yeah, y'all hit it on the head. Y'all on this. But
well, I want to say, if I could just respond to Danielle, I say you're a better man than I am because I wasn't even raised enough, man. I wasn't even going that far, man. I didn't have that story, man. I wasn't gonna try to go there because it probably wouldn't have ended well. So yeah, so I never had that experience,
Yeah, I could throw in one of those Daddy Almas into your life stories myself, but I'm gonna say that for another time. But is there ever an instance where not having your father around is a good thing?
I think so. I think so. Because like in life, you hit moments where you have to figure out conflict resolution, how to properly communicate, how to negotiate, how to just do certain things, not only as a man, but just as a human being in general. And so that's when you like latch on to the principles that your father taught you, but necessarily in that moment, they don't need to be there, right? And so, and I think that's one of the awesome roles of a father. It's like, I'm gonna teach you all this stuff up until you're 18, 21, 25, whatever. So by the time you go into the world, like you remember what I taught you, but you won't need me to be there like physically to help you through a certain situation. So that's one of those instances where I think it is okay to not have your father around.
Yeah, I agree with that too, especially like you say, if you're trying to move on and mature and so forth. I can see that too. Also, I would say if you're a young person, and I'm going to go back to this thing, if that father's abusive and so forth, you got all type of, turmoil in the house and so forth. Yeah, it's probably good at that particular time that he, get his hat and so forth. Still provide from a distance, but you don't need anybody there that's going to give you that bad role model where you see and picture that type of thing, see your mother abused and all that type of stuff, because that's going to have you probably look at your father a different type of way. Could affect how you grew up as a man and all those types of things too. You see, so yeah, in that particular case, it's probably best for him to make his departure, but still be connected in some form or fashion, in that particular situation.
Yeah, Pastor Malcolm, I would say that sometimes society doesn't see that as a level of maturity that a man takes. Sometimes they see that as that cop out. But if you do identify that your presence in that child's life is more detrimental than you out of it, that I think that's like one of the best choices that a father could make, a mother could make. You know what I'm saying? But we're talking about fathers. Any person that sees that them being in the child's life, it will steer that child in a negative way or cause emotional or physical harm to that child. I think that's such a huge, mature decision to make because you're doing it out of love. That's to me, that's love. You do things at the expense of your own hurt. People sometimes don't see that as love. Like, how could you say it's love when you're not in the child's life? Well, if I'm in the child's life and I'm blowing that spot up, if I'm in the child's life and me and the mom are tumultuous and that situation is a worse environment for that child, then how could that not be if I'm saying I don't want my child to grow up in that environment? That is love. It's just not working out. And so you have to do what is necessary in order to put that child in the best light. We let the courts make those decisions, or we let sometimes it becomes, I'm like, you're never seeing my kids again. It becomes an ugly thing, and it doesn't have to be, especially if you identify ahead of time, like, it's just best for me, best for us that I not be here. I'll still support, I'll still do all those things when the time comes. If I can spend time with my kids, this may not be that season, but there will come a time in the season that I might be able to do that. Sometimes we don't make those decisions. We tend to let institutions of law and medical make those decisions when we need to be making those decisions ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I know, if you're in a house and you're miserable, the wife is miserable, chances are the kids are going to be miserable. That's going to be passed down and so forth. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not just trying to say bail out the first chance you get, but you want a healthy environment the best you can and so forth. So, yeah, I totally agree with that. And the key thing is be responsible. Take care of the children. If you're not divorced from the woman and the wife, take care of the wife. You still be a man, but you just may have to be in a different proximity, not in the same, domains, the same place, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I think for me, when I read the question, is there ever an instance where not having a father is a good thing? Not having a father, I don't think that's ever a good thing for me. Speaking on my end, I would always want to know that I have a father, regardless, and even for me, regardless of what the situation might be, it's a, I guess I may have termed it as grace, giving grace to what we call a bad father, someone, excuse me, that may not be delivering the goods in the right way, being that type of father that we want to emulate. But for the most part, I think a father should always be around or have some type of role with the family, whether he's going through some hard times, and we never know when those may come upon us or an individual, we still need to, I looked at this as having grace for the father, in any and all situations, giving him grace, because you never know when that situation may turn around.
I could vibe with you on that, but from a standpoint of a man purposely being a bad example, purposely setting forth the wrong conduct, doing things out of character that he even knows in his own heart, because he probably witnessed the same thing, that's going to have a dire effect on these kids. That's making their lives just totally jacked. I think in that sense, it is good if he steps back, evaluates himself, gets out of that situation enough to grow up some, and then come back and be a father to his kids. So I'm never against fathers abandoning, but I'm always about, look, get yourself together. Because if you can't be that example, then it's something missing in you. Find that missing piece and find somebody that can help you find that missing piece. So it is sometimes good to not have that man around if he's not going to do anything but be destructive. And on the other hand, like what Austin alluded to, it's definitely good sometimes to have to go that further step and do things on your own. Do what you've been taught, because that's really the only way that we're really going to apply and be successful in life. Mm-hmm. But to the audience out there, look, man, if you are a father, a single dad, separated from your family, always look at reconciliation as a key, like Pastor Malcolm said. But at the same time, if you know you're not going to be right, get yourself right before you step in that situation. Don't try to stay in the situation because it's comfortable for you, because you're getting free rent, because everything's convenient for you. Be the man, be the leader, be an example. That's your role, that's your purpose, that's why you're there. Let's move on. I could rant on this a little bit, but let's go back to losing the dad again. Just how real though is the resentment from losing your father compared to him just being absent in your life? So let's say